since COVID-19 started and a lot of protective measures started to be instituted, a lot of our activities have gone online. And so we are not able to gather physically as we've been able to in the past. And we are not able to have physical meetings and basically give people physical experiences of our products. Yet it's still important that people are able to experience what it is that we are building as companies and as individuals. And we're trying to explore what it means to take all those experiences online and still deliver experiences that people will engage with and that will make them finally subscribe to our products and services. So you're welcome again to this webinar. I just want to go quickly through a couple of house rules, really just two. And one of it is that we really want this webinar to be as interactive as possible, but due to obviously network quality and just experience quality, we would like anybody who is not on the panel to keep their mics muted and allow just the panelists to speak. In fact, just anybody that is speaking to speak. But please feel free to use the chat function to ask any questions, make any statements, introduce yourselves, and just basically interact as much as you want. So we'll just immediately jump right into things. And I want to start just by asking our panelists to quickly introduce themselves. I'll do a brief introduction before, just to call them in. But we have 4 great experts today that are leading us in this panel. All of them are from different sectors, and they reflect different aspects of this conversation that I believe will give us a really rich experience. So we have Dolapo Amusat, who is the founder, CEO of WT Xtra and Talk Sound. We also have Kolawole Oshinowo, the head of key account management at Jumia Nigeria. We have Dr. Ogechi Adiola, the associate professor of marketing at Lagos Business School, PAU Nigeria. And finally, we have Charles Ojay, the CEO of HYBR. I just really want to go to Dolapo to ask him to give us a quick introduction of himself and his first view on the topic.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me. Please just confirm that you can hear me clearly. Please confirm that you can hear me clearly so I can proceed.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Dolapo. I have an engineering background. Essentially, started out as an electrical engineer. That's why I learned in uni. From there, I got into business strategy and SME consulting. So I worked with a venture building startup where we used to help. We used to build other startups, essentially help them solve their problems, help them create content and stuff. And then I worked in KPMG for a bit. And then I worked at Bolt or Taxify. You might know Bolt more as Taxify for a bit. And then now I'm essentially building my own agency. We launched about a year ago, and between then and now, we're really focused on entertainment and creative industry. So we've worked with clients like Universal Music Nigeria, like Taxify, like Tenny the Entertainer, some other big musicians and music brands across Nigeria. So we essentially build design experiences for them and build software for them. So going to virtual experiences, well, I think that it's interesting that we're having this conversation now that we're all practically stuck at home. We don't have much of a choice but to actually indulge and be active participants in virtual experiences. Before now, a lot of people had doubts, because I remember having conversations with people around how, virtual concerts should be a thing in the music industry. And people were like, no, we all prefer to be there in real life. It won't work. And then now it's like everybody is trying to figure out how to engage without the physical aspect of it. And I think that it's going to be a part of our future going forward. It's not something that we're going to reset and go back from. It's something that we have to learn and understand that it's going to be part and parcel of how every brand, every individual, every celebrity will try and engage with their fans, their audiences, the users of their app. You have to, you have to inculcate the idea of adding that virtual layer to things, because we don't even know what life will look like when we're totally out of this. So I feel like it's an important topic. It's one that is perfectly aligned with where we are right now as a world. So yeah, that's my view, my initial view.
Thank you so much, Dolakbo. So if Kola Wole could please just introduce himself and give his first view on this topic.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, and good evening, everyone. My name is Kola Oshino. I'm currently performing as head of key account management at Jumia Nigeria. Previously worked at Nokia and Microsoft and HNB Global, mostly in sales, key account management, supply chain, customer care solutions, sales capability. I'm quite interested in this topic because lately I've been focusing a lot more in terms of research around design thinking, consumer behavior, and how we can start using these two fundamentals in building digital businesses. So currently I'm shopping for a PhD, so Dr. Ogechi, so that I can join you in academia as well. And primarily trying to focus on how, and one of the research topic I'm actually looking at, which I'm trying to put in a book called Unlimited by Design, is to start, and it ties to this topic, which is quite interesting. And it's a question that I would use to start the conversation here today from my own perspective. Do we think consumer behavior is shaping digital business models, or digital business models is now beginning to shape consumer behavior? So it's a question that we need to ask ourselves. Today, I see myself farming as it were, on agro partnerships, on Thrive Agric or Farm Crowdy. Do I call myself a farmer? Or we see the likes of Piggyverse now asking us to use an app to save. Is that forcing me to change the way is that building a savings culture for me? So these are some of the things, the lines that when you start designing great consumer experience digitally or virtually, you blow several lines that you never expected. If you think about it, in 2007, I remember working with Nokia, and Apple launched the iPhone. We said, no, we're not sure that the iPhone was going to sell. And maybe partly because, being number one for 14 years, you say, oh, this phone doesn't even have GPS, it doesn't even have apps. I wish so sure it's going to sell. But iPhone was trying to reinvent the digital experience, which is the music experience that people go through. Instead of buying a CD with all the songs from one album, with iTunes, Apple said, you know what, why not buy one song out of the album? You don't need all the songs. Apologies to all the musicians. Not all the songs are great. Maybe there's one that is really great that you really want to buy. So for me, my opening point would be that we need to start considering the consumers, the needs and the job they are trying to get done before you start creating a digital experience for them or a virtual experience for them. What we now see with COVID and in my current work today in e-commerce is that digital transformation that a lot of companies have put in their plans that has become a strategy document is now becoming their lifeline to survival. So everybody now, they're not thinking of digital transformation as something that they need to implement. It's something that is now becoming a business model for a lot of brands and a lot of companies. So the starting point in building a digital experience is for you to understand the consumer and understand the shift in the consumer behavior. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that perspective. I think we'll come back a lot later to discuss what you've said here about how there's a shift in consumer behavior. Because I think that's an evident thing that anyone who even briefly interacts with consumers can agree to. So I would like Dr. Ogechi to please introduce herself and also give her first views.
Hi everyone, my name is Ogechi Adiola. It's my pleasure to be here. I teach marketing management. I am very passionate about digital. I'm passionate about consumer behavior. I'm passionate about security. So the intersection of SME, consumer behavior, and some other industries, I have my research interests. I think the whole world is having a crash program on digital, and people are actually freaking out and saying, "What is this?" So this is a good to have webinar. How do you design experience a digital world, a virtual world? And it's interesting because people kind of look at a virtual world as if it's different from what they have offline. Yes, in a way it is, but you must, under the fundamentals, still remain the same. Customers want value. Customers, so you must create value for customers, whether you are in a virtual environment or you're delivering the service physically. So you must have your definition of what excellent customer service is. And once you have your definition of excellent customer service, once you understand the customer, and understanding the customer involves understanding who your 5 W's and 1 H. Who are these customers? What do they buy? Why do they buy? When do they buy? Where do they buy? And how do they buy? The how is very important, and that's when digital means. And understanding these customers very well, you are able to design superior experience that are memorable for them. And when you understand them, you're able to align, get the right channel and align. So it's a question of channel alignment. So creating value involves understanding the customers and knowing that consumer behavior is shifting. And then when you're translating it into digital, except if you're just online, throughout your business is online, but if it's been offline, and you're bringing it to online, you have to think of which channels should I use to reach these customers. And that's the importance of right channel alignment. So that's my first point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ogechi. So finally, if we can just have Charles give his own introductions and his first views on this topic.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I've been on and off. I don't know what's going on with the connectivity today. I hope you can hear me pretty well. My name is Charles. I'm a CEO at Hyper Group. We are a Pan-African innovation firm, and we basically see how we can use technology, business, and humanities to solve problems at scale on the continent. My background is corporate, from Procter & Gamble to DuPont, GE, Samsung, and also I've taken my own stint of entrepreneurship by starting a technology company years ago, and we launched that fully digital business in India. In terms of the topic for today, I do teach at the EDC, and I teach technology in business. And one of the things we used to say in that class is digitize or die. And it sounded like a joke, but when COVID hit, it became a reality for so many businesses. And with the COVID lockdown and with social distancing, we're seeing a very big disruption of service delivery channels, route to market for so many, if not all businesses have been disrupted. And this is because in the past, wherever you produce your product, whether in the factory or your service in the office, you would take it through a channel. Either you take it to the market, you run events, you do direct marketing or sales to offices, and eventually that service or product will be consumed by the final customer or consumer. But now with COVID, not only are you not able to operate from your office or from your factory, you are mandated to basically upgrade to online, to run your business online. And every other channel that you had used, which was traditional, is now almost eliminated. And your consumers as well, you might not be able to directly reach them. So this basically creates the death of distance and mandates everyone and every business to begin to look at digital. And I think that even though it's sometimes difficult to adapt, but by having the right mindset and the determination to basically leverage digital, we can all definitely make the changes that we need to keep our businesses running and also grow in these very uncertain times.
Thank you so much, Charles. I think that was very clear on the importance of digital in everyone's playbook now. And essentially, that is what we want to talk about now. We'll immediately go to the case study presentation by Dolapo. And basically, what we have asked that he helps us do is really look at a case in point of running an experience right from what his clients wanted all the way through executing it digitally and giving everyone a truly great experience. And so he will just run us through that case study quickly, and we'll be able to see, you'll be able to draw out some points that will even help us as we enter into the panel discussion proper later. So Dolapo, please, over to you.
All right, so I'll start sharing my screen now. So please just let me know if once you can see my screen. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So basically, I work with a bunch of young guys as well, a bunch of my friends, to basically solve problems for companies, essentially. But we're a bit biased towards the entertainment space and music space, because that's really where our interest is. We've worked for other non-entertainment related companies as well, but I was told essentially to by the organizers of this event to go over a case study. So essentially go from end to end of how we worked with a certain team or a certain client to deliver a digital experience. And I chose to talk about what we did with Tenny. I hope that we're all familiar with Tenny. She's pretty popular. She's one of the biggest female musicians in Nigeria. So I'll proceed. So first, I'd like to just spend a little time talking about the components of virtual experiences as a whole. And I'll start with design thinking, or that should be thinking. Design thinking is essentially being able to design experiences, design products, solve problems from the user's perspective, from the user's point of view. So with design thinking, you're not thinking about yourself. You're trying to put yourself in the shoes of the fan, the user, the customer, whoever the audience of whatever you're building or designing is. You're trying to build it from their perspective, because you know that in the world of today, there's a lot of competition. And if all right, so I was saying that in the world of today, there's a lot of competition. And if you don't make the user or your customer feel like you have taken them into consideration every step of their journey with your brand, they are going to churn. They're going to switch to someone else who's making them feel better. So it's an approach of building products, solving problems, where you put the user first before yourself, and you put yourself in the shoes of the user. And that's the approach that should be taken when you're designing anything, in fact, in this day and time. So another component is, of course, design and software development. That's if whatever experience you're trying to give your audience requires them to interact with you on the web, for instance, or through an app. Yeah, I'm hearing so many. Yeah, so I was saying that you need to design or build apps, build websites, if whatever it is you're trying to communicate to your audience involves that being used. But in some other cases, on some other hands, you might not necessarily need to design or build anything. It might just be you communicating to your audience through social media, or you holding an IG live event, or a Facebook live event, or a YouTube live event to reach your audience. So that's where social media comes in. Social media is essentially what funds the conversation. So you can start the conversation on web and then bring it into social media. It goes viral on social media. And social media goes beyond Instagram, Twitter, Facebook these days. It's essentially TikTok and Triller, these new applications, these new platforms that are just short form video content. These are things that some years ago would have been considered too funky by brands, but it's interesting to see that these days you find brands actually creating TikTok accounts, making fun videos, employees, staff making fun videos and putting it out there, trying to connect with their users and their customers. So that's where everybody is going. So we should think of social media even beyond the traditional social media platforms, because social media in itself is even evolving beyond just writing Facebook captions, Instagram captions, or writing tweets. It's now short form creative video content. Then of course, data and insights. That's really what helps you optimize your decision making. And that's what helps you improve, because at its core, design thinking is supposed to be an iterative process, which basically means you're supposed to put out content or put out an experience, collect data, analyze that and get insights, and then improve when you're doing the next one. So without focusing on data, there's really no way you can understand how you can do better. So data will tell you things like where your audience is engaging with your brand the most. So on what channels are you getting the most engagement? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it your website? Is it through Google search? Is it your app? So that lets you know where to focus your attention on, and also how to augment the other ones that are not performing well. So also helps you know how your audience is engaging exactly. So there's the where and then there's the how. So are you putting up content on your social media platforms? Your audience, are they just liking it and going? Are they actually trying to continue the conversation? Because at the end of the day, it's not enough for people to just see your content or know that you have an experience going on. What you want them to do is actually be part of it. And of course, content is in the center of everything. Content is what dictates what platform you're going to leverage, how you're going to push it out. If you're trying to organize an event like this, for instance, you use a platform like Zoom. If you're trying to have an online concert, you use YouTube or Instagram. So whatever content you're trying to put out to your audience, what you want your audience to resonate with is what will determine where you're going to push it through. And that's really the core of the whole experience. What's the content? What do you want them to see? What do you want them to leave remembering? And then you should leverage tools and platforms that are already available. You don't have to build it all. There's so many tools available that will cut the time that you will spend on designing experiences by a huge fraction. For web, there's tools like Wix, for instance. There are tools that even allow you to build free websites, free microsites. there's a tool like Canva, for instance, that allows you design for free, and you don't need to spend money, for instance, to communicate with your audience via IG Live or via YouTube Live. So there's so much already available to you for you to leverage. It's just about knowing these tools. So let me just jump straight into the case study. I'll try to just be quick through it and just give a brief overview of what the client wanted and how we were able to deliver the results. So this is the outline for the presentation. Let me just jump into it. So I bet most of us know Tenny. She's 27. She's one of the biggest female musicians in Nigeria. So her brand is essentially, she's funny, she's down to earth. Yeah? What? Was that for me? Hello?
Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So so moving on. So she had, as at December last year, she had just released a music project that was called Billionaire, and a single called Billionaire. And the theme around how the song was promoted and how the project was promoted was basically trying to evoke nostalgia in people. So most of us grew up watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So basically the idea was to try and use that nostalgia. You know, when you mention Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, everybody has fond memories. We all remember watching it and experiencing it. So the idea was to use that to create an experience for her fans that they would engage with. So they wanted to promote the project. They wanted to reward top fans. And they also wanted to reach out to brands, to other brands, to partner with them and support them. So these were three parts. These were the three key elements that we helped them with. So first was to promote, second was to reward, and third was to propose. So moving on. So yeah, I already mentioned this. This is a snapshot from the video, from the music video. Essentially, they recreated the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game show. So that was just the concept that we had to follow. So basically, what we did was split into 4 steps. First thing was essentially to design, to use visual design to create, assets around her brand. So we designed a logo for her for the experience. We designed flyers. We edited a video that she would put out to our fans. Then the second phase was to build a web-based game that her fans would engage with. And then through this game, we were going to reward the top fans. The third was to collaborate with the team to design partnership decks that they would send to brands that they wanted to sponsor the event. And then the last one was essentially us collating all the data and insights we got from the campaign and then reporting that back to her team. So they would understand how their fans are engaging with them. They'd understand who their top fans are, and then they'll do better on their next campaigns. So this was our design. This was how we tried to recreate the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, how we adapted it for Tenny's brand. And this was something that a lot of people found very, very nostalgic. So basically, the idea was to be beyond making the fans play the game. The idea was also to help her video get more reach, get more views as well. So one of the things we made sure we did while designing the flow for the game was we ensured that we strategically placed the video on the game. And then we designed the game such that the questions were around Tenny's brand and then the video. So if you as a fan wanted to win the top prize, which was 1 million naira, you would have to watch the video multiple times, thereby leading to an increase in streams and revenue for 10 years as a brand. So that's a win-win. So she's giving out 1 million naira to her top fan, but then to become her top fan, in the competition to become her top fan, people would have had to share her video, watch her video several times in order to be able to answer the questions that were asked. So that was how we integrated her being able to gain from the virality of this experience. So basically, we asked questions around her, like, what would I be if I wasn't a musician? So her team supplied us with these questions and then the correct answers. And then each question had a timer of 30 seconds. So fans had 30 seconds to basically answer these questions. And for you to know these questions, you have to be a real fan. So essentially, online experiences, these new experiences we're creating can let you even know how much your fans or your audience or your customers truly know about your brand. How big of your fans are they really? Like, how far can they go in knowing who you are? So that's one thing we try to achieve with the framing of these questions that the fans had to answer. And then so there were a series of questions. The game ends when you either miss a question or you answer all the questions correctly. And then this was data collection for us again. So if we remember what I mentioned data. So this allowed us collect data for her team. So to register your score on the leaderboard, you had to supply your name, your email, and your country. And you were also encouraged to share your score with your friends. So if you share, when you press the share link, it opens Twitter and allows you to tweet something already pre-designed, your score, and then a link inviting other fans to come and join. So that creates some sort of viral effect. So this data, for instance, was useful to her team after the event because they were able to keep in touch with everybody that played the game. So they were able to send them mails, for instance, and keep them in their mailing list. So to ensure that there's retention of that fan base. So that's another thing. It's one thing to create the experience. It's another thing to ensure that when the experience is over, the fans that engage with the experience, your audience, your customers, you don't lose them. You continue to engage with them as time goes on. So when you're doing something else, you reach out to them again. So yeah, this was a public leaderboard that showed the top 50 fans at the time. So the highest ranking 50 fans were displayed publicly. So it means as a fan, I could go there, check where my score was. If I saw that, oh, I'm not in the top 10, I have to go play again. So fans would go back, learn the answers to the questions, watch the video over and over again, and then play the game again. So that still increased the engagement. So the way it was designed, the fact that the scores and the rankings of fans was public, it further increased the engagement because fans would realize that they weren't ranking high, and then they would go back and play the game over and over again. So those were the mock-ups we did. The game was hosted on this website, has now been taken down. We developed it, and then this is a view of how the game really looked on mobile. And the campaign lasted for 9 days from December 4 to 13. So her concert was 20th of her concert was on the 20th of where whoever emerges top in hands would win mobile phones. So they all won mobile phones. So this is another key thing we should note: how online experience. So this experience was virtual, was totally online, but then she brought it back to real life, to the physical world, by inviting the top fans from this game into our concert, and she met them personally. So that's where offline and online meet. And that intersection is extremely essential. And then so these were the top 10 people that were invited. The game was played by over 1,500 people across Africa in just 9 days, and the game was played over 30,000 times, meaning the average person played the game 20 times and over. which definitely resulted into a spike on her music video streams, a spike on her visibility and mentions on social media. So those were some of the things that her and her team gained from this campaign. So this was the winner. This was the winner who won 1 million naira at her concert live. So he played the game online, had the online experience, and also was able to go to her concert and have an offline experience where he interacted with her physically, and he won a prize money of 1 million naira. So basically, online experiences can also allow you to reward your top fans or reward your top customers. So with this project, essentially, what Tenny was able to do was, partner with brands to secure prizes for her fans, and then create an experience that would allow virality on social media. Lots of her fans engaged, lots of her fans saw it, and then she rewarded her top fans. And that is in a nutshell, that's essentially the end-to-end of how we're able to take it from a brief, from them just telling us, oh, we want to engage people online, we just released this project, and we have this concert coming up. How do we do it? And we'll reward the top fan with 1 million naira. What do we do? And then we design this experience from the beginning to the point where the person actually got rewarded with his prize money. So so this is essentially what we do. We've built a couple of similar experiences for a bunch of companies and music artists across the world. And if you're interested in anything similar, anything that involves design, software development, experience designing, so that's what I do. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Dolapo. So I think basically what Dolapo has been able to do is show us really how he designed an online virtual experience for something that was essentially ended offline. I think that really sometimes that's what you find that will happen. We design products physically, we design services physically, but the only way to reach channels or the channels that are best able to reach the customers that we're targeting are online. And so the key questions always has to remain, how are you able to engage them through all the touch points that you have online, and then still tie into whatever offline activity that you want them to take. Or if for cases like e-commerce, where almost every single activity point happens online until delivery, how you're able to sustain that tempo from start to finish. So thank you so much for that, Dolako. I'll just jump right into the first question that kind of ties into a lot of what we've been saying here, but is based on whether or not we should design online experiences like physical experiences. So should there be any marked similarities and differences between designing physical experiences and online experiences? And should we actually be patterning our online experiences after physical experiences? So I will ask Dr. Ogechi to help me answer that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Interesting presentation by Dolapo. I enjoyed it. Thinking of design thinking, leveraging social media, and also understanding your target market. Basically, we begin with understanding our target market. I know that there are certain differences between online and offline, like it needs sharper targeting, utilizes a variety of content and platform. You must be creative, so you must have content, and it uses apps. The marketing must be agile, and there must be instantaneous feedback. There's instantaneous feedback, and you're able to respond. But basically, you must create value for customers, and creating value for customers we still have to think about knowing your customer. Before you design, you must know your customer. So both online and in the physical interaction, you have to know who your customers are. And knowing who your customer is would enable you target precisely, have precise and maybe a precision targeting strategy. In online, in the physical or face-to-face, if I'm going to look at target market, I'm going to say you can use demographic, you can use age, location, you can also use location, you can use income, you can use a lot of things you're looking at targeting. But when you're online, you have to look at, I prefer to tell my the people, the participants, and also the people I consult for, I tell them use age mainly to do your in designing, and age and interest. So in digital, you can divide them into segment into the digital natives and the digital immigrants. But I would assume that Dolapo's target market was more of the digital natives. So we have the digital immigrants that were categorized from the people that are the veterans, which is about 1922 to 1945. Then the next is the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. So we have the veterans. So we already know the people that will be at the veterans. Baba Basanjo. We have so many of our elderly men and statesmen. So there, and also our fathers. Then you have the digital, you have the baby boomers, and why they are called baby boomers is because they were born immediately after the World War, and then there was the boom of babies after 1940. So most people, and using income, thinking about that, those people want to, they must earn your trust to be able to persuade them to go into digital. They must, although a lot's happening now. When I looked at the statistics from in Nigeria, in Go Social, I saw that WhatsApp had Nigeria, the most used platform was WhatsApp, and most of this age group use the WhatsApp. They have the money of the economy. So that's 19. So we have that 19. That the baby boomers. Also in America, they hold a certain percentage of the economy. They're actually the people that the wealth resides in. So next we have the Generation X. That's my generation. We have based from 1965 to 1980 is a very wide range, 1980. 80, you also have, I'm sure Dolap also had some of the Gen S, maybe the latter part of the Gen S, where you have the Dibaj, the Tiwa Savage, and some other musicians, also more, or their fans. So you have that. So we have from the Gen X is a long category, is broad category, which starts from a Rotimi Amechi. We are Nigerian, so we'll be able to understand, which is so 1965 to a 1980. So these people are called digital immigrants, because they were born before the advent of the digital age. So, so you have that. Then the digital natives are after 1980. So you have 1980 or 1981 to 2000. Some they call it Gen Y, and those are the millennials. Most companies ask, do you have a strategy for millennials? How do you design? What's your strategy? I've had consulting briefs and online consulting. I was involved with London Taxi Company. They were makers of the black cab of London, and they wanted us to envision. It was a cross-country research on envision the world. It was 2015, and they said we should envision the world in 2025. And they were also concerned about how millennials would look at taxi. Would they want ride sharing? So this is a very important age grade, and most countries it also forms the bulk of the population, especially in Africa, because we have 70% of the population below the age of 36. So that's very insightful. This is a population you cannot do without. So they are called digital native. Then the next is after 12,000. Some people started from 1995, and those are called Gen Z. So they are so Gen X, Gen Z, you must understand your target market. Understand then the income. Where do they play? Because you must understand how do they buy? How do they buy? To design experiences is that where do your target market fall under? Where would you categorize it, and what do they buy? And so apart from knowing the sharper targeting and being able to categorize your target market and segment appropriately, segment digitally is very the fundamentals. Basically, what do customers want? They want excellent service. And if in designing excellent service for offline for the physical environment or for your physical store, we in marketing we use what we call the RATER principle. So your service must be reliable, and it must the customer reliability. There's assurance, then there's tangible, there's empathy, and there's responsiveness. So reliability, translating it into digital, how reliable are your services? Customer wants to know if you this is what you promise. It's very do not fail. Customer wants on-time delivery, and that's also what should be in digital. It's even more in digital that you must think of on-time delivery. The next one is assurance. Assurance, how do you translate it? Your website, if you're selling online, make sure the customer is assured that his money is safe. Assurance of your service, trust is very important. So you translate that to online. Then the next one, RATER, is tangibles. Tangible is your website. How easy is it? Is it mobile friendly, which is what people will want, especially the millennials? They will just bounce. The bounce rate will be so high if it's always hanging. How have you customized? How is your website? Looking at it, is it and being able to determine what is good? Is it attractive? Is it attractive? Would I need to look to be able to get to the landing page when you advertise, or is it when your advert takes me straight to the landing page? Because if not, your bounce rate will be high. Next thing is empathy. Your customers want empathy. They want you to be empathetic. They want you to know that you care for them. You have staff, seasoned people that respond online, and there's somewhere for a customer to lay the complaint. And the next one is responsiveness. Are you responsive when they ask for something, or you do say it's your 24 hours, 24 hours? So that's basically what it is. But on designing this, is just knowing that you have to be more detailed online because it will show. And fundamentally, you must know the fundamentals are the same, basically.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogechi. I think that was a very precise answer. And I like especially the RATER framework, and even applying that to online experiences to see how we can ensure that we still tick all those boxes, even as we're designing experiences online. Actually, when it comes to things that are within your control, because I think one thing that we find out with online experiences is that some things are outside of your control, but some things are your own media, and you have more control over those particular touch points. So thank you so much for that. I just quickly want Charles to basically touch on how we can create comfort while designing online experiences. And I ask this question because a lot of the time, a lot of things that our audience is facing are actually outside our frame of control. So there can be bad data, there can be distractions online, calls can come in, just different types of things. And so I would like to know what are we able to manage on our own hand? And then what are the steps that we can take to manage those external factors that we may actually not be able to handle?
All right. Thank you very much. And also thank you, Dr. Ogechi, for that very elaborate explanation. And I think if you listen well to what Dr. Ogechi had said, I think most of the elements have been covered as it relates to, giving your audiences comfort online. But I would just want to add three things to that as well, and also to answer this question. I think the very first thing is there really is no so much difference between designing offline and designing online experiences. I think they almost follow the same principles. If you look at some of our audiences, you might even be amazed that many people spend more time in the virtual world than in the physical world. And one thing I would like to say is that content is king. If the content is rich, if the content is simple, if the content is relevant, if it's needful, and if it comes in a very timely fashion at the right time, your audience or your target users will stay hooked. And that's the first thing. The second thing I would like to say is that, technology will not replace, customer knowledge. And I think and Dr. Ogechi really emphasized that, and I just want to just echo it again, is in order for you to deliver that experience and even create some level of control, you need to know the audience that you're really speaking to. And then thirdly, based on that knowledge, you need to use the relevant channels to reach them. And when I say channels now, I'm talking about the digital space, because there are so many channels. And the type of audience will define the type of channel you're using. So if, for example, you are speaking, like affects, if you're dealing with farmers, many of them don't have smartphones. So the medium you would use would be very different. Maybe it may be SMS. If you're dealing with urban mobile youths, it's not just social media now you're looking at. You're looking at deep, social media, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snapchat, or whether it's a customized app that you have for them. So I would say in driving engagement, which then leads to better control of the situation, the content needs to be right. You have to be very clear in terms of the audience you are channeling that content to, and you have to be very specific in terms of the channel you would use to basically reach. If you have these three fundamentals in place, then I think you've set the right foundation to move forward.
Well, thank you so much, Charles. That was really good when you said technology will never replace customer knowledge. I think that that's one thing that we always have to keep in mind as we design experiences online, because we can tend to rely too much on the tools and forget to be human-centered and really just care about designing for the audience at hand. I would just like to go quickly to Kola to ask about his experience in e-commerce. And I know one very unique thing about e-commerce is that a whole lot of the activities and touch points with e-commerce happen online. Because from the customer discovering you and hearing about you, almost up to order and checkout, all those touch points are likely to occur online, apart from maybe the delivery of the product. So my question to him would be how he's able to create that online experience until final delivery and ensure consistency and sustained interest throughout the journey.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's going to be hard for me speaking after Dr. Ogechi and Charles, because they literally covered, it's a segue into the question you're asking, and they sort of covered a lot of what we would do to ensure that there's consistency and sustainability in the customer experience delivery in e-commerce. Just like Charles mentioned, and I'll just elaborate on 2 points, which he has already mentioned, which is content and engagement. In e-commerce today, the consumers are not seeing what they are buying. So, if you go on social media, you always see memes around, it's the case of what I ordered versus what I got. And because people are not seeing these items physically, they can't feel it, they can't touch it. You must be able to create the content in such a way that it would inspire them to be able to make that purchase decision. Because people do buy on impulse, people do buy based on their needs, but if you don't give them the right content online, then you will lose them, no matter how good your product is. So one tool that we normally use in e-commerce, and this is e-commerce 101 for anybody in e-commerce, we call it Rapid. R stands for ratings, which offline you call testimonials. Ratings is what people who have bought the products in the past, what ratings are they giving to the product? What is their view on that product? And that is what, at the moment of truth, when they're trying to buy that product, they can look at the ratings and say, okay, this product has got a 4 out of 5 rating. You read other people's comments, and based on that, you can make your judgment. Especially when you have an e-commerce marketplace where there are multiple sellers selling different kind of products. You can use that to navigate through the sea of products that you have. So if you're building a digital experience, you need to start considering that as part of the business model, because you also need to be in your customer's shoe and understand what they want. So R is for ratings. The second one is assortment. So what kind of um, uh, product assortment do you have? An assortment is not just about the size of the product. It's not just the size of the product, but also includes things like subtle things like how many colors of this product do you have? I've had people tell me that, oh, I'm actually ordering this product um, so that I can choose which color I want. And I'm like, you know what? It means that we have failed in giving you the right level of content if you have to order 3 different colors so that you can choose the one you want. So that is assortment. Then we now look at the pricing. You also want to be, because people are, the lines between the digital experience and the offline experience is blurring. Consumers are also, they are consumers. They also want to make sure that the price of the product that they're getting online is the same as what they're getting offline. So you also need to take that into consideration in terms of the pricing of the product as well. Then the I is image. How do you put, like, I mean, you're selling an iPhone of 410,000 naira as an example, and you put one image for the customer to see. So that, for me, I mean, I would think twice before I buy it, because I want to see more. I'm paying so much for that product. I want to see more images that would excite me, that would inspire me to actually pick up that product. Then the last one is D, which is the description. How much of information, just like Charles said, technology cannot replace customer knowledge. So you need to, and technology is always an enabler, it's not the end point. You need to put as much description of the product, things as subtle as you put up a product of a particular, I don't want to mention a brand, but you say it's 100 ml. But on the description, it's not there. But we know it's 100 ml. You assume that the consumers know that it's 100 ml. But the person picks it up, and at the end of the day, he realizes, oh, I was actually looking for 300 ml, not 100 ml. But because you did not put that there, you ruin the entire experience for the customer. So Rapid is a show. I mean, it's our own way of ensuring that the content that we deliver to the customers is really great, and that ensures that they get the best experience online. The second part is engagement, and just like everything in digital, it is precise. You can measure. Unlike if I put up a billboard on the road today, yes, there are a lot of metrics you can use to measure the impact of that billboard. But with e-commerce, with digital platforms, you can actually measure the engagement of the customers. I'll give an example. In 2018, over 100 million people visited the Jumia platform. 5 million people shopped, and this is public information. We see that we have customers and we have consumers. There are people who use the platform just to check prices, just to know more about the product. That is still usage. You still need to consider them as well. So how do you build engagement activities beyond the opportunity to sell? How do you build engagement activities that ensure that the customers keep coming back? And when they come back, they might see things that interest them, and they may end up buying for you. So if you're able to build these 2 elements into your digital platform, content and engagement, then you're well on your way to winning the hearts and the minds, and most importantly, the wallets of the consumers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really liked all the points you made about pricing, because I think one thing that is clear is that online has made pricing research very, very easy. Like, you can legit go online and search through a number of brands and determine a number of price points, and how we're able to stand our pricing out from every other brand in the market is actually a very important point in designing experiences online. So that involves, I think, both simplifying price information so that people have everything that they need at a glance, but also giving them enough justification as to why they should pay that amount for something they may not even be able to touch or feel. So I'll just go quickly to Dolapo to ask about tools. I know it was one of the things that he mentioned early on in his slide when he talked about how the different points in designing experiences that we should consider. So I just want him to touch on how important tools are in creating online experiences, how much should we rely on them, and maybe give us a few examples of what tools we can actually leverage on for immersive experiences.
All right, thank you. I'd like to say that for this, we can look at tools and platforms as two things that are sort of similar or they work together. So tools are essentially what you use to create or to perform an action, but platform is where or how whatever you have created will now reach the people that you're sending them to. So of course, for online experiences, there are several possible tools across several possible channels or several possible types of content that you might want to create. So it's really a wide range. And the interesting thing is for the benefit of SMEs, for instance, because I know that you mentioned that this event is really targeted at SMEs. There are several free tools online for almost anything you want to do regarding digital. So from content, from simple graphic design to building a website, to email marketing, to audio streaming, podcasting, which is something that I think is really important as well. The world is tilting towards people not wanting to read anymore. People want to watch and listen. Even books now, people are moving towards audiobooks. So companies now are trying to shift towards putting out podcasts. And even when you look at trends with music technology companies like Spotify, you see how much attention and how much importance they're attaching to podcasting now, because that's one thing that I feel like many businesses and brands should start embracing now, audio content. So, but back to what I was saying, I'm just going to give a few tools and what they can be used for across several of the components that you would find within online experience creation. So of course, when let's start from web, for instance. So you're trying to create a website for your business. There are tools like Wix, WordPress that allow you to create websites for next to nothing. Create decent websites that have mobile responsiveness, that would serve your purpose and help you reach your audience. Simple stores. You can set up a simple e-commerce store with WordPress and it integrates with one of the popular payment platforms that we have. So as I said, there are always free tools. It's just up to how much you can search for them, find them, and then leverage them. So there's Figma, for instance, as well. For instance, you're trying to build something, you're trying to build an app, you're trying to build a website. Figma allows you to prototype whatever you're trying to build before you build it. So it helps you create very, very interactive prototypes that have a semblance of what the app or products will look like in real life. And then you can share these prototypes to users or potential users, get feedback from them about what they think is wrong, how you can improve whatever it is you're building or designing, and then integrate that feedback into the iterative process of actual development of the product, of the website, of the app. So it essentially mimics what apps would look like in real life. And that's one very important thing. When it comes to digital design or development, you want to be able to test as fast as possible, put something out as fast as possible, get feedback from users, and then improve on whatever it is you're really building before you put it out. You don't just want to spend all the time, like the traditional waterfall model of development, where you say, oh, let's finish building before we roll out to the users. Nowadays it's agile. You start and try and get to have an end product as soon as possible, put that out first, and then test with that so users can give you feedback, and then you continue improving what you're building. So that's one thing Figma can help you do. Figma can help you prototype what you're going to build before you even build it. So I mentioned WordPress, Wix, Figma. So those are 3 tools that you can use for websites. Social media, of course, there are different kinds of contents that you might want to put out on social media. There's, visual, there's also text. So you can use tools like Canva, for instance, for design. It's practically free as well. So you can design very good looking graphics that you can put out to your customers on social media through a tool like Canva. The presentation I gave today was designed in Canva. And Canva already has ready-made templates. So for an SME, for instance, if you don't have so much strength in terms of staff size, you have just one person handling the entire marketing, the person can very easily design stuff with Canva without having design expertise or knowledge. So that's one tool that's really important. You can also use tools like Buffer for posting, scheduling content across all your social media platforms. So you can have a content calendar and then schedule everything ahead of time where you don't have to manually go and post one by one across all your channels. So that's another tool. I think Buffer I don't think there's a totally free version of Buffer, but there are similar tools to Buffer that have free versions. So there are free versions for virtually everything. Of course, you can also use Photoshop for designing content that you want to put up. But of course, that requires a level of knowledge or expertise. Now, let's move to email marketing. Email marketing is essentially you can automate your process. If you have an e-commerce store, for instance, or a store where people are supposed to get something, purchase something, such that when people sign up, they get an automated email that welcomes them. When people perform actions on your platform, maybe they're trying to buy something, for instance, and then they don't complete the transaction, they just abandon it halfway. So you can automate triggers that will allow that would create emails or send emails to customers depending on what part of the journey they stopped at, and then they can get an email saying, oh, you tried to put a few things in your cart and you tried to buy a few things, but you did not complete this transaction. May we know what was wrong? Or you can offer them, you can even design special discounts for them. So email marketing tools can help you reach your audiences in this slides, and that's also important for a company that's designing an experience that includes sales or transactions. Can also go to audio streaming. Yeah, I mentioned podcasts earlier. I think it's something that most companies around this part of the world are sort of getting late on. I think it's something that more companies and brands should start jumping on as soon as possible. And there are platforms like Anchor, for instance, is owned by Spotify, that allows multiple people in different places record a podcast episode together and then edit the podcast and then distribute it all for free. So that's another free tool that allows you to do podcasting without having to spend a dime. And then behind all of these things, of course, is analytics, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to measure how you're performing. So there are several platforms where you can actually understand what customers are saying, how they're responding to your content. So each of these social media platforms, for instance, have their analytics platforms that are free to access. So you can go to your Instagram analytics, your Facebook analytics, Twitter analytics. You can use Google Analytics for your websites. So you know what are people engaging with, what are people not engaging with. When you find out what people are engaging with, you can do more of that. And then that informs the decision, on what more to create. And then you create more of what people like. And then when you see things that you want people to engage with, but they are not engaging with, you can now go into things like doing A/B tests to understand what might be wrong. So an A/B test is simply, trying to measure the impact of a variable or a piece of your. So let me just go straight into an example. If you have an e-commerce site, for instance, something is going wrong, people are not completing a transaction, you might have a few reasons why you think people are not completing that transaction, but you can validate it with an A/B test. So an A/B test is simply you would have two versions or multiple versions of the same website and then change that thing. So if it's a button, I've read somewhere where e-commerce sites will change the shape and color of a button, and then it will increase conversions. It will increase their transactions. So it might just be the way something is arranged on your website that's not smooth enough for users to actually get to the end of that journey. So A/B tests allow you to, you can split the people visiting your website into two parts. For instance, half of them sees one thing, half sees the other, and then you measure the performance of both halves against each other, and then see the half that is performing better. And then, so those are some of the things that you can do with analytics. So these platforms all have their inbuilt analytics tools that you can leverage to understand your audience better. You can also leverage Google Trends. That's another super important platform that you can leverage. It basically allows you to know how much people are searching for particular keywords on Google. And we all know Google is the biggest search engine in the world. So essentially, what people are searching for, when people have the inkling, or when people think about anything, the first place they go to by default is go and search on Google. So it means Google Trends can help you know what people are searching for, what keywords they are searching for. And then when you know those keywords, you can shape your marketing and communication material, your marketing messaging around those keywords, because those are the keywords that people are searching for. It can also help you with search engine optimization for your website. So that's another part of it. Of course, there are data collection tools, like you can leverage Google products like Google Forms to send out surveys to your users, understand what their issues are, ask them questions. So these are just some of the key areas where you might need tools, and some of the tools that you can leverage for each of them. And most of these tools are actually free. So there's a strong availability of platforms and tools for you to use. It's more about understanding how to now tie everything together into your digital strategy, and then track everything, make sure you're optimizing all your channels, the channels that are working well, focus more on them, try and improve the ones that are not working as well. And then you find the sweet spot for your business where your customers are reaching you the best, and then really focus on that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Olako. I think that was a very, very comprehensive list, and it will really help everyone if you can even help us front load some of the tools on the chat function, so everybody can have access to that. And so I think we're really running out of time. And I want to call out to the audience in case there are any questions, even as I just quickly ask our panel to give final thoughts on the topic. And I think what I especially would like to hear in this case is their suggestions for ensuring engagement during online experiences, but also how they think that brands can best tackle designing experiences online. Like what amount of I know that Kola had mentioned how it is necessary for us to start considering digital as part of our business model. So how should brands start to consider that? And I would like everyone to just as briefly as possible just go through that. We'll probably start with Dr. Ogechi. Just go.
Yeah. So yes, thank you once again. So I would say I'll start with a quote. One of my favorite quotes on digital is by Eric Qualman. He said, "We don't have a choice whether we do social media. The question is how well do we do it?" And I keep saying, do we really have a choice? Google has us. Google has the information on us, and what people do, especially when they are thinking of digital, the aspect I'll just quickly go is that they don't really think of reputation management. So at the end of designing your customer experience or engagement strategy, you must also be ready to put in place, how do you handle bad press? How do you handle negative comments? How do you handle viral? So principle to handle it, you must track, which Dolapo has mentioned, so many ways to track. But mainly what you use is Google Alerts. Make sure you have Google Alerts. Some people use Mention, some people have socialmention.com, some use Reputology, but importantly, have strategy to track your mentions. You must be able to respond. And the next thing is resolve. Make sure you resolve it, because once it goes viral, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was succinct, and I think the major point was to ensure that we have strategies in place for tracking. So if Charles can just help us with his own final thoughts.
Thank you very much. I would like to leave the audience with three C's. This kind of like almost summarizes everything that I personally am taking away from this webinar, because I've really enjoyed myself and I've learned a thing or two. I think the first one is centered around communication. I just want to say that communication, when it comes to digital experiences, should be multi-channel. It should be between you and your consumer or your audience. It should also be, and then where it becomes very powerful is when the consumers begin to communicate with themselves around the platform that you have created. If you can have these three layers, it's really very powerful, and it drives very deep engagement. The second C is what I would call co-creation. We talk about experiences. These experiences are supposed to be for these consumers or these audiences. How can they be involved in creating those experiences? The more you involve the consumers in creating the experiences, the more it will stick. So as you design your digital campaigns, or as you design your digital products, get the customers or the consumers involved in the design process. If you have your communication very strong, if you have co-creation happening, it takes you to the third C, which is community. Because eventually, whatever experiences that you are creating, you don't want your consumers to leave. You want them to stay, and you want them to feel at home. So how do you create a community around these experiences you have co-created and communicated with your customers? So so communicating, co-creating, and building communities is something I think once we're able to do very well, these experiences that we are taking up will stick. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was clear for everyone to keep the three C's in mind in designing experiences online. So we can just go quickly to Kola for his final thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much. I've also learned quite a lot, and Dolakmo really took me back to my tech roots with all the things I was mentioned. I'll also compliment Charles, maybe because his name starts with Charles. I'll also compliment his three C's with the final C, which is consumer. Everything starts and ends with the consumer. Once you're able to understand the way the consumer behaves offline, because for us who have been in tech, we always design the experiences from a tech point of view. We don't actually go, and I tell my team, before you put out any product, before you put out any, into the market, go to Balogun market, go to Computer Village, and watch how they actually, people are actually buying or experiencing this service or buying this product. If you understand the way consumers are buying, then the next thing you also want to understand the way they're also using the product. That way, it becomes easier for you to design the experience online for them. If, for example, you want to create a digital platform for laundry service, how is it done offline currently today? And don't start from technology. Technology is supposed to be an enabler. You are there to solve the consumer's problem, and you need to understand how they are solving that problem offline while you are using digital technology to enhance their experience or to dramatically alter that experience that creates value for the consumers. So for me, as a salesman, when things are going wrong, I stay with the customer. When things are going right, I also stay with the customer. And to Dr. Ogechi's point around listening to the customers as well, you also want to be there and listen to the conversations they're having on social media, on via their WhatsApp stories these days as well, on their Snapchat, on TikTok, even on this Zoom, how people are behaving with their videos. You already see what kind of experiences you can create for these customers. So you need to listen to them, you need to watch them, you need to observe them, and that way you can start seeing what you can change. I'll give an example to close. I'm part of a cooperative society, and we realize that those of us who join that cooperative society, normally cooperatives have meetings. They actually have to come, they have meetings, they discuss their objectives and all that. But we realize that all of us that are in this cooperative society, we do not have time. So somebody said, okay, maybe we need to start creating a cooperative society for people who actually do not have time to come for meetings, to come for the cooperative meetings. So, but for you to do that, you must understand what is happening offline before you now digitize the experience. So, long story short, design for the customer and you will win.
Thank you for those last words. Design for the customer and you will win. So for us, finally, for Dolapo to give us his final thoughts, and I believe we'll be ready to close.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to leave with these statements by Andrew Chen, who is a top person at Silicon Valley. Essentially, he has invested in several companies and he knows a lot about the growth of tech companies. So he said he calls this thing the law of shitty click-throughs. I don't know if anybody is familiar with it, but it's essentially saying that all marketing channels decay over time. So let me give an interesting illustration. The first banner ad ever on the internet in 1994 had a click-through rate of 78%, meaning 78% of people that saw that ad clicked it and went to the landing page. In 2011, the average click-through rate on Facebook was 0.05%. That's more than a 1,500 times decay in how people are clicking on ads. And when you look at almost all marketing channels, the numbers are dropping. So the lesson here is to evolve and innovate. Don't be one of the brands that will catch up on marketing channels when everybody else has caught up on them, because at that point, the conversions would have started dropping. Be one of the people that are actually leading. When you hear about a new platform, a new tool, a new way of reaching out to the audience, experiment with it as early as you can in a way that won't cost your brand much. If it works, continue to use it. If it doesn't, continue to improve on how to use it, because it's going to become big one day. And then the early adopters of that channel would be the biggest benefactors. That's the same way people that have been on Twitter for a while now have millions of followers, while some people who just ignored Twitter and joined last year are still struggling with having 10,000 followers. Because basically, the earlier you jump on these channels and start using them for your brand, the better for you. So don't be one of the people that will be caught behind. Be an innovator and be an early adopter. That's all from me.
Thank you, Dolapo. So Dolapo is basically leaving us with an encouragement to learn to experiment with platforms and tools early, and imbibe the habit of being early adopters to different digital tools and channels. I think it's a very good place to end, and I'm hoping what everyone can take from here is the necessity of investing in digital, but keeping the customer at the heart of that investment. So always ensuring that we are building for the customer, whether we are offline or whether we are online, and ensuring that at the end of the day, the customer is able to easily interact with our brands no matter where they meet it. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you a whole lot to our panelists. I think they did a fantastic job. And we hope to be keeping in touch even as we continue the Xtra Conversation Series over the next couple of months. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.